4 new coronavirus cases confirmed in Lagos. Lagos government shuts down public primary schools, suspend religious gatherings of more than 50 persons. In international news, European Union leadership warns travel ban may cause supply chain disruption. And in sport, Nigeria Football Federation shuts down all football activities for a month.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Lagos Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, has confirmed 4 new COVID-19 cases on Thursday. This brings to 12 the country's total number of coronavirus cases. The Health Commissioner explained 19 persons were tested on Wednesday, 4 of whom tested positive and are being isolated for treatment at the Infectious Disease Hospital in Lagos. Professor Abayomi said the first of the 4 new cases is a Nigerian woman who had contact with a woman who came from the UK some days ago and tested positive. The second new case was a female who returned from France last week. The third case is a Nigerian male in his 50s who had not traveled anywhere but has tested positive to the disease. The fourth new case is a Nigerian male who arrived in the country last week as well from Frankfurt. Professor Abayomi has appealed to passengers on the 2 flights to self-isolate themselves and contact the government. Professor Abayomi says currently the state government is doing a contact tracing of 1,300 persons to find information about the state of their health, and the number is increasing. The recent increase in the number of persons testing positive to the coronavirus disease in Nigeria, Lagos State government has placed a 4-week restriction on all religious gatherings of more than 50 persons. Commissioner for Home Affairs, Prince Anofie Elegushi, also advised all health workers to be more vigilant. Hours after announcing the suspension, the Lagos State government also announced the closure of all public and private schools in the state effective Monday. Commissioner for Education for Lashade Adefisayo said in a statement the school's closure became necessary in order to prevent teachers and pupils from contracting the deadly disease in the state where 6 confirmed cases are already quarantined. National Youth Service Corps Coordinator Ajia Walida Isa says the federal government territory has recorded 100% compliance with the directive on suspension of the ongoing nationwide orientation exercise. Isa said this on Wednesday at the Kubwa Orientation Camp in Abuja. A week ago, NYSC had performed the swearing-in ceremony for the 2020 Batch A Stream 1 Corps members. The Corps members were then supposed to leave after a month orientation exercise. But Isa says the camp swung into action to ensure the Corps members were sent to their places of primary assignment immediately the directive was given. The decision was to prevent the coronavirus from further spreading in the country. A Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA boss Femi Oke Osaintolu has confirmed the gas explosion last Sunday morning has displaced more than 400 residents of Abule-Ado area of Lagos. 17 deaths were recorded and more than 100 houses badly damaged. The Lagos State government plans to set up a relief camp for the victims at Igondo. Okel Saitolu says 90% of the 170 buildings, 90% have failed integrity tests and would be pulled down. The DG says 9 schools were badly affected. House Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila has revealed the circumstances behind the House of Representatives' decision to delay approval of President Buhari's $27 billion loan request. Gbajabiamila says one of the reasons was the Igbo agitation that the Southeast would not benefit from the loan. The Speaker said this while receiving a delegation of religious leaders from the South and Southeast regions in Abuja on Wednesday. He said he has personally spoken with the Finance Minister and the Director General of the Budget Office to find a solution. Last Thursday, the Southeast Caucus in both chambers of the National Assembly complained about the exclusion of the region from infrastructural projects. The caucus also complained about poor representation of the region in the appointments in National Assembly institutions.
Coming up, African stories. Ghana shuts down all public and primary schools in reaction to COVID-19. And later, international news. European Union leadership warns of disruption to supply chains by travel ban.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. The government of Ghana has closed down all public and private schools in a bid to contain the spread of the coronavirus. The country has recorded 7 cases so far. Health officials say all the cases were imported. Reporter Nabil Ahmed Rafai has the story.
A partial lockdown of the University of Ghana campus. Lecture rooms closed, all teaching and learning activities suspended. That's the response by authorities after one of the students in this university tested positive for the coronavirus.
Halting of our education and everything is good for us at the moment because we don't know how it's going to spread because the disease is very dangerous.
Health authorities say all of the cases confirmed so far in Ghana were imported. The university student who tested positive reportedly traveled to the US and returned with the disease. University authorities say they are tracing people the students who tested positive may have come into contact with. They have also urged students not to leave the campus. But some students are already packing out. Others say they don't see the need for restrictions.
The fact that we are having this pandemic effect, or the fact that we are having these things going around, shouldn't restrict academic stuff.
Ghana is revising its response to the coronavirus outbreak, moving beyond just screening and surveillance at entry points. The government says it is restricting people from countries that have recorded more than 200 cases of COVID-19 from coming into Ghana. All schools in the country have shut down indefinitely. They are working to activate online platforms so students can work from outside the classroom. And for those who remain on the university campus, the lesson of the day: to continue taking precautionary measures, including using hand sanitizers, to help keep the coronavirus at bay.
Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta has cautioned traders in the country against raising prices of basic commodities in the wake of the coronavirus outbreak. Kenyatta said traders should conduct their businesses right and justly. He said law enforcement agencies have begun taking punitive actions against offending businesses. Kenyatta said nobody in the country has ever had a problem with people making profit, but that it is highly immoral if one takes advantage of the unfortunate situation to make super profits. The president made these comments when he met with members of the governing council of the Kenya Bankers Association. The group was led by Kenya Central Bank Governor Patrick Njoroge, who outlined measures being taken by the banking sector to cushion Kenya's against the effect of the coronavirus pandemic. President Kenyatta said the government is open and will continue to dialogue with all stakeholders so as to address challenges being faced by citizens as the country battles the outbreak. South Sudan's transitional cabinet's ministers were sworn in on Tuesday to officially begin work. President Salva Kiir named 35 cabinet ministers last week to serve in the transitional unity government after a series of delays. Patrick Oyet reports from Juba.
A cabinet comprising of 35 ministers, 10 deputy ministers and 5 vice presidents is now sworn in. It is hoped the formation of a new unity government resulting from a 2018 peace deal will end 6 years of civil war in South Sudan.
South Sudanese are very dynamic people. They can change very fast. But it needs our collective political will. Let us have political will to avoid tribalism, to avoid nepotism in the country, and look at each other as brothers and sisters. one people, one country.
The civil war displaced more than 4 million South Sudanese people. Livelihoods are destroyed, and the new government is expected to prioritize peace building and reconstruction of destroyed infrastructure.
I am very happy. There are no more sounds of gunshots. Things are getting better, but the government should do more, because in this country, things can change rapidly. We can have war out of something small.
The situation in the country is changing. I am seeing many good things now. The government officials are speaking with one voice, despite the fact that they are from different factions.
The parties to the peace deal are still working to establish a parliament. The peace agreement dictates that the National Assembly should be made up of 550 members. State governors are also yet to be appointed. The United Nations is calling on the new executive to speed up the process so that peace and order is restored across the country as soon as possible.
There is a mysterious disease in Ethiopia's Somali region that has claimed the lives of more than 2,000 nomads. The mystery illness caused them to bleed from their mouths and noses. They are also reported to have had swollen limbs and green or yellow eyes. Nomads roam with their cattle around the Ogaden Basin region, an area frequented by companies prospecting for oil and gas. There are reports that some local residents in Kalub have accused a Chinese firm, PolyGCL, of destroying the environment where they graze their animals. The company is prospecting for oil. The company signed a deal to give half of any income from its exploration to the Ethiopian government. The project includes construction of a pipeline from Ogaden to Djibouti and would enable Ethiopia to export natural gas. The government says the project causes no health and environmental crisis in the region.
When we return, international news. European Union leadership warns travel ban may cause supply chain disruption. And later, sport. NFF shuts down all football activities for a month.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the international front, a quick report on China's coronavirus battle. The country has reported no new local infections in 2 days now. But this, China has reached a milestone in its very expensive fight to rid the country of the disease. Now, China can focus more on reviving its economy, which nearly totally collapsed after the imposition of travel restrictions and quarantine measures. We congratulate China on this milestone. As European Union borders close against non-essential travel to the bloc, the leadership in Brussels has warned of potential disruption to supply chains. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced strict restrictions on the export of protective gear such as masks and gloves to non-EU states. She warns if action is not taken immediately to keep the single market operating, shops will start facing difficulties in refilling their stock. Reporter Tony Waterman is in Brussels.
Out in one day, banned the next. Foreigners looking to enter the European Union will find that nearly impossible to do in the coming days. EU leaders agreed to seal their external borders for 30 days as they try to slow the spread of the deadly coronavirus. European citizens, residents and their families, along with medical staff and diplomats, are exempt from the ban, which could be extended if the situation deteriorates further. The EU-wide measure comes after a number of member states put strict restrictions in place, both for foreigners and fellow EU citizens.
It's an extraordinary move for the bloc, which cherishes the freedom of movement both in Europe and outside. For Brussels, the move pulls every country back into alignment at a time when unity is key, even if that unity is fragile.
The United States military is deploying 2 hospital ships to help in the fight against coronavirus in New York City and on the West Coast. Pentagon spokesperson Jonathan Hoffman said on Wednesday, USNS Comfort will be deployed to New York Harbor in the coming weeks. Once it comes out of maintenance in Norfolk, Virginia, USNC Mercy will be deployed within days to a location on the West Coast. Air Force Chief General David Goldfein said coronavirus testing supplies are being flown by the U.S. Air Force to areas with the greatest need and the most urgency. The Pentagon has reported that as of Wednesday, nearly 90 coronavirus cases throughout the world are related to the U.S. military. There are 49 service member cases, 14 civilian cases, 19 dependents, and 7 contractors. Malaysia has become the latest among Southeast Asian nations to impose a lockdown. This move has sent shockwaves through neighboring Singapore, whose citizens have close business and personal ties. We get more details from reporter Miralu.
Queues of people turned up at the land borders between Malaysia and Singapore on Tuesday after Malaysia's Prime Minister announced a nationwide lockdown, which take effect from Wednesday till the end of the month. The announcement gave just 1 day's notice for those commuting between the neighboring countries on a daily basis to come up with a plan. The checkpoints usually see around 300,000 crossing each day.
It looks like a war, no? Everybody is pulling the luggage. The whole causeway, everybody is walking across the road. I need to find a place to stay in Singapore. So I just book a hotel for 2 weeks. That's the only way I can do. Because I live in Malaysia with my wife. So now I got no place to stay.
I'm studying here. It will affect my studies because it's lockdown and my parents asked me to come here to stay.
Malaysia's lockdown caused panic buying at Singapore's supermarkets, with some worried that fresh food imports might be affected. The Singapore government quickly countered these fears, assuring the public that Singapore is not facing an immediate shortage of food or essentials. Purchase limits were imposed, however, at Singapore's largest supermarket chain, NTUC FairPrice, on vegetables, rice and other products on Tuesday. Yet the mood remains calm.
I think our Singapore government has always emphasized that they have enough to tie us over, so it should not be a panic for the general public. I think we should just follow and go slow, go easy, just buy what is needed.
Earlier this week, the Singapore government also tightened travel restrictions, announcing that people entering the city-state with recent travel history to ASEAN countries, Japan, Switzerland, or the United Kingdom will be issued with a 14-day stay-home notice. The authorities also urged Singapore citizens and residents to defer all non-essential travel abroad. The new border restriction measures are aimed at slowing the country's tally of COVID-19 patients after a recent spike of imported cases in the island nation. For now, the short-term impact of the travel restrictions and lockdown is clear, with some families temporarily separated and businesses affected. Longer term, Singapore's Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong shared that he received reassurances from Malaysia's PM that the flow of goods and cargo between the two countries would continue during the lockdown.
Up next, sport. Nigeria Football Federation shuts down all football activities for a month. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. The Nigeria Football Federation has shut down all football activities for the next 4 weeks. NFF Director of Communications, Ademola Olajire, says the action is as a result of the global coronavirus pandemic. He said the shutdown affects all on-field activities involving the various national teams, the Nigeria Professional Football and other leagues, youth football programs, and even street football. The league management company says players in the Nigeria Professional Football League will undergo drug test on resumption. Chairman of the LMC, Shehu Diko, said the league body intended to strengthen its anti-doping policies through this move. Diko says the LMC has punished before, now players found to be involved in doping. That is in the news this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.